Welcome everybody to the Eshelmania TV vlogcast here on the Eshelmania TV YouTube channel. This episode here, I'm going to talk about the Simplicity products because I've had some people comment on some of the videos that we have here on the channel and asking, what is it that you're saying that you should probably stay away from Simplicity. I don't think Simplicity would be a good investment. So I want to address that because I think it's something that is a good topic, and I think we should talk about it because I was surprised when we posted that video showing the similarities and the differences between the Simplicity Regent and the Snapper SPX tractor. There was a lot of people that had no idea that Briggs Stratton owns both of those brands, and those tractors are so similar. And that was kind of surprising, and obviously, if people don't realize that, then they probably don't realize a lot of the other stuff that's been going on with Briggs and Stratton and with Simplicity in particular. And so these are this is the stuff that I've come across over the past 4 years as I was at a Simplicity dealer, and just some of the writing that's on the wall and some of the things that I've seen. Years ago, Simplicity was a decent brand of tractor. I'll start out by saying I have one of the old Landlords from back in the 60s. It's been sitting for a couple years now. But, man, I was using that thing for everything. It was a good, solid little tractor, had the rear lift. I built a box scraper for on the back of it, I would use that thing to haul and pull and tow whatever. Great, just versatile tractor. And it's been sitting because it has the old Briggs cast iron single cylinder in it. The carburetor issues and stuff are finally getting to it, and it was, it's just old. My plan was I wanted to put a V twin in there. I wasn't sure if I was going to do a Kohler Command or if I wanted to put a Briggs Vanguard. I was actually leaning towards the Briggs and Stratton Vanguard V-twin because I thought it'd be cool to have those aluminum valve covers that are on the Vanguard V-twin. If I had one of them sticking out from under each side, polish them up nice and shiny, kind of like an old street rod. Because those tractors, they just look cool, They didn't have that full steering wheel. It was like 2/3 of a steering wheel, and it was kind of offset, and it just, everything about it just... you look at it and it's like, that thing is cool. It's, straight out of the 60s, and you can tell. There's no, well, maybe that's from the 70s or 80s. No, that is from back in the day when cars were cars and they had, just the custom look to them. I love that tractor. I would love to get it fixed back up and running, but, it'd be another thing that I just don't have time for and would sit around here and slowly just go to waste like some of these other tractor projects I have that I can't get to. But also, my dad has a Simplicity Legacy with the loader on it. We have a video going over that, His has the Kawasaki liquid cooled V-twin in it. And his was right before Briggs bought Simplicity. And, let's start out by talking about that. Let's start out by talking about the Legacy tractors. That was the big deal, right? That was their little kind of subcompact tractor. You can get the loader on it, 3-point, rear PTO, and they were good little tractors, 4-wheel drive. But back then, you could get them with the liquid-cooled Kawasaki, like I said, my dad's has. You could get them with a Kohler Command. You could get it with a diesel engine. You could get it with a Briggs and Stratton V-twin. There's plenty of options there. Something to suit everybody. So it was a little bit more appealing. And it was really... the John Deere guys hate when you say this, but it was almost like an orange version of that John Deere X700 series tractor because, take the one my dad has. You got the liquid-cooled Kawasaki V-twin, and you have the tough torque transmission, slightly different, but, there's also a lot of similarities there. Shaft driven, the loader on there. The loader was easy to get on and off. Very comparable And that John Deere X700 series, when you could get a loader on them and all those extra attachments, they were a very popular tractor. Very solid, very reliable. People loved those things. And if you weren't a John Deere fan or you didn't have a John Deere dealer in your area, that Simplicity was a good option. You know, yeah, I mean, I can't complain about that one. That's been a good, tough tractor. He's had it for several years now, and we have used that thing for a lot of stuff. Um, but you know, when Briggs took over Simplicity, they really killed that tractor because eventually it got to the point where your only option was a Briggs Stratton EFI V twin. Okay, yeah, that's not terrible, but it's not a Kohler Command EFI V twin. It's not a Kawasaki. It's not a diesel. And when you're paying $10,000 for a tractor, another what $2,500 for a mower deck for it, another like $4,000 for the loader. If you wanted rear PTO, that was extra. At that point, you're at the price of a better subcompact tractor from Kubota, John Deere, New Holland. You know, you're going to have a diesel engine in one of those. You're going to have a higher lift capacity. You're going to just be able to do more with it, you know? Um, so yeah, it really killed that tractor to only have that one choice of engine, and then have that price tag on it. But if that wasn't enough to scare people away, there was the attachments were a pain in the ass. You know, those last legacies that they made, if you had a loader on it, well, that took one subframe. If you want to take the loader off, you want to put a snowblower in the front. Well, you have to take that loader off, take that subframe off, swap another subframe under there. It just, you know, compared to these other ones, these other manufacturers had figured it out where you can just drive the tractor right up to the loader, hook up your hydraulic hoses, and just, you know, walk that loader right back onto the tractor, throw a pin in there, and you're done. But there's Simplicity, you know, just going backwards. Shouldn't say Simplicity so much. Briggs taking Simplicity backwards. So it really hurt the sales of those bigger tractors. And, you know, if you don't have something that appealing, what are you going to have from there on down? Well, you'd say, well, you know, there's still a good market there for the average homeowner. You know, some of these other machines that they have. Yeah, the Regent wasn't a bad tractor for a while. You know, the price kept going up on it. The quality kept going down. Again, eventually it was a Briggs & Stratton engine only. It was one of their V-twins. The positive to that is the parts were very common and easy to come by. The downside of that was it wasn't a Kawasaki, wasn't a Kohler, it wasn't a Honda like they put in those Regents for a while. It was a Briggs, and it wasn't a Vanguard. It was just a regular Briggs V-twin, you know, one of those ones, the glorified Intech. And the problem with that is you're paying all this money for a tractor that's supposedly so well built, but then you have this engine with an inflated horsepower number and not nearly as much torque as a Kawasaki or a Kohler. So you get into the real heavy grass, and between the engine not having that torque that it needs to cut through the thick heavy grass, and that floating deck that everybody thinks gives you such a wonderful quality of cut, that floating deck would allow the belt to get loose at times. So without that torque, without the frame mounted deck to hold the belt as tight, you get into tall, heavy, thick, wet grass, and you're going to have to be going back over it several times because the blades would end up skipping. You know, there just wasn't enough tension on the belt. There wasn't enough torque in the engine. It would chatter. It would vibrate. So that was one of those things that people kind of, well, you know, if I can get this same mower here from John Deere with a Kawasaki for the same price, I shouldn't say same mower, same price, and it's got a Kawasaki in it, I can get this mower here from Husqvarna, and it's got a Kohler in it. Yeah, you know. So Taking the mower deck on and off of those Regents. They make it sound like, oh, it's just so easy. We got this quick hitch setup up here in the front. You know, you just pull this and you just do this and slide right on out. And if you watch the Simplicity advertisements for that, it's great because on the Regent, that 48-inch fabricated mower deck, it's a heavy, heavy mower deck. But it is a pain in the ass to get out from under that tractor. And if you watch the videos, we're like, yeah, all you do is you pull this pin back here and you pull this, and then up front you unlatch this and you just slide it right on out. They'll show you that entire process until it goes to the point where the mower deck is getting slid out from under the tractor. And then all of a sudden they'll skip to the tractor sitting there and the mower deck being beside it and already out from under it. Because you're not getting that mower deck out from underneath that tractor without lifting up the tractor or jacking it up or something. Because the mower deck is so wide, it's so big and heavy and bulky because it's a fabricated mower deck, and then you've got that solid mounted hitch piece out in the front that you have to get past the tires, and there's just not really enough room under there to do this. So it makes it quite the process to get that mower deck out from under there. And when I say quite the process, you'll say, well, it's no problem. You put a little jack under the front there, and you lift up on it, and just slide it right on out. Go take a 48-inch deck off of a John Deere X300 series tractor. Go take a 48-inch deck off of a Husqvarna 100 or 200 series tractor, even a 300 series tractor from Husqvarna. Go take a 54-inch deck off of a John Deere X500 series tractor. If you've never done that and you've only ever taken them off of a Simplicity and you're thinking that's easy, you have no idea until you try one of these other ones. Hell, go take the mower deck, go take a 48-inch deck off of a Snapper with the frame mount deck. Yeah, even that's way easier. Go take a 48-inch deck off of a Cub Cadet. Way easier. So, yeah, once people start doing that, and, they do that to be able to change their blades, clean the deck up, whatever. They do it a couple times, and they're like, holy crap. This is not anywhere near as easy as they make it out to be, especially if they've owned something else, like one of those other brands that I've talked about that, are way easier to do. I mentioned the belt tension, and a lot of people say, well, I've never had problems with that. My belt stays tight all the time, but it's a free-floating deck. If you take, if you've got a curve to go around or something, the mower deck is going to be on the ground. The tractor is going to be turning. There's always the potential for that belt to get loose then, because you can have the mower deck going one way while the tractor is turning another, and you're going to get slack. Yeah, I get it. There's a spring there on the deck. It's a spring-loaded idler and all that stuff. But there's still times it happens. Seen it quite a bit. That free-floating deck, people will go on and on and on. Great quality cut. Best stripes you'll see. You can come here to our area, and you want to talk about striping. You can come here to our area, and if you go around and you look at all the landscapers around, you're not going to find anybody using a Simplicity zero turn or anything like that for their commercial landscaping company. Because everybody else, every other manufacturer has figured out how to put down nice bold stripes without all that extra shit on the deck. No rollers. You don't need them. Even Ferris. Ferris is like the stepbrother to Simplicity. And those zero turns years ago, they had like a rubber mat on the back of it that would drag on the grass to kind of mat the grass in one direction to add, better stripes to the cut. They even did away with that. They figured out a way to be able to stripe the lawn without anything extra like that. It's just the advancements in technology. These decks just haven't done it. And, okay, if you want to cling to the fact that you think because of those rollers and that free-floating deck, it gives you the best quality cut, it's coming at a price. Because those rollers, they're costly to replace. We would see quite a few Simplicity tractors, the Regents especially, because that's what sold the most, Coming back in with that shaft that those rollers ride on, bent because people would be trying to use it as a tractor, to tow a lawn cart, to tow a lawn sweeper, to do other stuff. And that mower deck, when it's all the way up in the transport position, we showed you in this video comparing the SPX to the Regent. When the mower deck is up in transport mode, those rollers are all but on the ground yet. And they're getting them caught on tree roots. They're getting them, smacking against rocks and everything else, and they get in the way. So if you have the 48-inch deck on your Regent, it's not even worth it to try to take that mower deck off there so you don't beat up the rollers and everything, because that's a pain in the ass, like I just said. So, yeah, that quality of cut, you can talk about that all you want, but like you said, it's coming at a price. There's a sacrifice to be made there. The Broadmoor, that's the next step up. And this is one that, oh man, this is one that for so long, you have the customers come in and you've got your tractors sitting there and you got the Regent and then you got the Broadmoor. And it was such a big jump in price from the Regent to the Broadmoor. And the customers are there and they're like, well, what am I really getting for all this extra money? Well, you're getting a mesh seat. Yeah, I don't need that. I'm fine with a regular seat. Well, you're getting suspension. Yeah, but this Regent here, this 48-inch cut Regent, or this 44-inch Regent, it's got suspension too, and it's not that much. Well, bigger front axles. I'm not off-roading with it. I can't really do tractor stuff with it because the roller on the deck's going to get caught on everything. Well, there's a clock in the dash. Yeah, I got a cell phone. Got a spot to put my cell phone right here in the cup holder. If I really want to know what time it is, I can also wear a watch. Plenty of ways to tell what time it is without a clock on the dash of my lawn tractor. Well, ACT, automatic controlled traction. Got to have that feature. Oh, man, it's world difference. You're going up a hill, boom, ACT kicks in and off you go. Yeah, ACT, that's a great one. That is, God, that's probably one of the gimmicks of all gimmicks when it comes to lawn equipment over the past couple years. Automatic controlled traction. And if you read about this in your owner's manual or in the owner's manual, you can go on the Simplicity website. You can look this up. The owner's manual for a Simplicity Broadmoor. Automatic controlled traction. And what they say this is that if one wheel starts to spin, ACT just kicks in. This preset load on the transmission just kicks in, and it keeps the traction there between both wheels. Whereas on a regular transmission, one wheel would just spin freely and you'd be done. So, two big key points about this automatic controlled traction feature: that they got the fancy decals on the side of the tractor, and that's the selling point for any Simplicity salesman that doesn't know anything about how their product actually works. Number one, it's a Tough Torque transmission. If you go on the Tough Torque website and you look up this transmission, you will see that there is absolutely nothing in that transmission that is going to make this a posi, a limited slip, or do any of this fancy witchcraft that they claim that this transmission does, because it is labeled as a completely open differential transmission. Yeah. The other thing is, they say it's automatic and it's not. If you read it in the manual, it'll tell you that, it's very possible that both tires are going to spin. Or, I shouldn't say that you'll lose traction, especially if you're turning going up a hill. And the way you make the automatic traction control system work is you come to a complete stop and then you just start out slowly. So, um, yeah, automatic. It's automatic, but there's a process you have to do to make it work. How automatic is that? Boy. And then if you're familiar with hydrostatic transmissions in tractors, if you've driven or operated a few different models with hydrostatic transmissions, you get back to like something as simple as like an old John Deere Sabre or John Deere STX 38 or the cheapest Husqvarna that they make or anything like that, and you start to spin. You got that one wheel spinning. If it's not something where it's up in the air, it's spinning because the grass is wet or something like that. You come to a complete stop, and you just slowly push that forward pedal so you're moving at a crawl. It's going to spin both wheels at the same time at the same speed, and you're going to be able to just creep right along and crawl right out of that. That's exactly what this is. But they act like there's something special there. The only thing special about it is that when you come to a stop, actually, but before I say that, if you've ever owned or driven one of these Simplicity Broadmoors with the rear suspension, that's the key, and you're on a hard surface and you have the thing at full throttle and you go to pull forward, you're going to get that extra bounce in the back because of the suspension, right? So that's what they're banking on here. Just like the regular hydrostatic tractors that I mentioned, if you just started a crawl, you're going to go. But with the Broadmoor, it's got that suspension, so you're going to get that extra little bounce. It's going to give that extra little stress on that transmission. That little hitch in the giddy up there to give it just a little bit more traction than your standard one. And again, it's still not automatic. It's a tough torque transmission in there. The tough torque says there's nothing inside here to make this thing do any of that. It's just an open differential transmission. Tough torque makes the transmissions that are used in some of the Husqvarna models with that automatic locking differential. And if you take one of those suckers out on blacktop or a cement surface or something, and you cut the wheel, the steering wheel really sharp, you'll feel that grab. You'll feel that kick in automatically. It just automatic. You don't have to come to a stop. You don't have to push any buttons or levers. You're going up a hill, constant. It's got stuff in that transmission that's going to make it happen. If you go on the Tough Torque website, you'll be able to see, hey, this has something in here that makes this happen. They also use a push button electric locking differential in the transmission on their 300 series tractors, which is also a Tough Torque transmission. Then there's a couple other a couple other manufacturers, OEMs, that have tractors that have Tough Torque transmissions in them with a manual locking differential, which even Husqvarna, not Husqvarna, Simplicity has that on their higher end ones. Believe that's an option yet. On the Conquest, you have that differential lock. If not, no, it's on the Prestige, and we'll get to the Prestige here in a bit. But yeah, that Broadmoor, that feature is it's a gimmick, and you might be saying, how can you say such a thing? I saw videos, I saw their advertisements for this. Because we had some that people would buy because somebody was telling them that, hey, you can put a snowplow on this in the wintertime, you'll get way more traction with this than you would with the Regent or this other model from this other brand over here. Because that person refused to believe that this was just a gimmick and kept trying to sell this to customers. And every now and then they would succeed. And then the customer would bring the tractor back and say, this thing's terrible on hills. It just spins. And call up tech support and say, well, I got Broadmoor here, and this is what it's doing, and blah, blah, blah. They'd say, well, check this. Okay, yep. All right, well, yeah, if that's good, then we don't know what else to tell you. Just go ahead and replace the transmission. Replace the transmission, same thing. It's always going to be the same thing because it's an open differential. There's just no other way around it. You know. So yeah. Um. Then we move on. Like I said, the Conquest, that wasn't a bad tractor. Just high priced, really high priced. Um. It was a step above the Broadmoor, and then you move up to the Prestige, and there was a time where they were making these Prestige tractors all-wheel drive. That didn't last very long, did it? And the reason for that is they had no reverse really. You couldn't back up a hill. They had no speed in reverse. It just wasn't there. It was a terrible setup with the linkages and the motion control system on those tractors. And again, they were really high priced. Now they had hydraulic lift, power steering, that good stuff. Differential lock, I believe, on all those. But anyway, I know they did have I remember they did have the power steering and the hydraulic lift and all that stuff, and they were expensive 2 years ago when they were like $8,000. Well, now that Simplicity has discontinued the Legacy, that Prestige is their new $10,000 tractor. It's still the same tractor, but it's $2,000 more. It wasn't worth it when it was $8,000. It's not worth it now for $10,000 for sure. Even with inflation, it's not worth it. They're pushing that to be in a class with those John Deere X500 series tractors, and it's not. It's not. Yeah, for $10,000, you could buy a nice Kubota. For $10,000, you could buy quite a few different things. As far as a tractor, and have a lot better tractor, a tractor with more options later on to add to it. So, yeah, that's tough. Those prices were awfully high on this stuff. Even the Broadmoor now, you're talking like $6,000 for a Broadmoor. It's not worth that. You move into the zero turns. I mentioned that if you come to our area, and a lot of areas really, you're not going to see Simplicity zero turns being used by the commercial landscapers. And yeah, go on and on about the quality of cut all you want, but here's the thing. If you look under one of these Simplicity zero turns, like I said, the roller is what they build this claim on about the quality of cut and these bold stripes, because that roller is matting down the grass to give it that darker striping. The problem with that is on the zero turns, it's not a full width roller. So if you're a landscaper and you're going out there to mow an area, you're going to break out your, say, 54-inch zero turn, and then you've got an area that you have to mow with a walk-behind mower, or a stand-on mower. Well, you're going to want those stripes to match. If you're mowing with a 54-inch zero turn, you're going to want the same stripe, the same width stripe as that with your stand-on mower. You can't get that because on, let's say it's a 48-inch, sorry about this, got to move the microphone here. Let's say it's a 48-inch cut Currier, Citation, whatever model you want to pick from Simplicity. If it's got a 48-inch cut deck, it's probably going to have about a 26-inch roller underneath of it. Yeah, that's it. Now, if you want to make the claim that, well, that doesn't matter. I mow with mine. It's got a 60-inch, or it's got a 50-inch deck or a 48-inch deck, and it leaves a full width stripe. Then what's the roller for? This can't work both ways. You can't say that, yeah, we got to have that roller under there for the stripes, and then say, well, no, this zero turn, it leaves a stripe the full width of the deck, because it doesn't work that way. It's one or the other. Either you need it or you don't. And the Currier, the Courier is a pretty popular model because of the price. A lot of residential people like it. It has that little cargo bed on it. It's very handy. I'll give it that. The issue you're going to have with that is if somebody buys one of them with that cargo bed and they're trying to mow a large area, they're trying to use this thing for a little bit more than it's meant to do. If they're trying to run for long periods of time, you got that cargo bed on there right over top of the engine. So guess what it's doing? Yeah, it's convenient and all, but it's also blocking all that cooling air that could be going down into the engine to keep it from overheating. So if you're running that thing for, a couple hours at a time, and you can say, well, who would be doing that? Why wouldn't they buy a commercial one? Because of price. I mean, it happens. That should be no surprise to anybody. So yeah, I mean, that's a nice little feature. It's handy for a lot of people, but again, it can also cause some damage there if not used properly. So we got to include that. They come out with the 61-inch Currier. That's great. The 52 was a decent machine. They come out with the 61, and you say, oh, well, that's nice. It gives everybody a little bit cheaper option that wants a big mower or a big mower deck to cut a wide area. But I think in doing that, you're killing the sales of your next series up. Because now they don't have to jump up to a better built machine. They can buy this cheaper machine with the big mower deck, and you're killing those sales of your next series up. That was the reason to move up. 52 was good enough to go with on that Currier. Just stop there. You don't have to go any bigger than that. But they did it. They did it. And they didn't just do it with simplicity. They did it with snapper, too. Yeah. It just, I don't know. From a business standpoint, I don't think that was a good move. I don't think that makes a whole lot of financial sense, when that was a good selling point to move somebody up to the next series. And it depends on what you're sitting on as a dealer. The majority of dealers, they were starting with the 42-inch Currier, and I'm sure there's some that still have the 44. So you had a 42, a 44, a 48, 52, and now a 61. That's a lot of inventory to stock. That's a lot of different models, different size mower decks. But then you have each of those with either a Briggs engine or a Kawasaki engine. So you got to stock one of each. That's a lot of inventory to have on hand. And again, when you have that many different models and they're that close for, some of those, when you had a 42, a 44, a 48, and then a 52, you're talking, 42 to 44, obviously 2 inches, 44 to 48, 4 inches, and then from 48 to 52, another 4 inches. Then you've got the two different engines. Now you've got to stand there as a sales guy, and you got to spend more time talking to the customer about all this stuff. And they're not the only ones. They are not the only ones that do that, and I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that from any brand. I'll be the first one to admit it. Husqvarna is terrible for that. When they were still making their walk-behinds, they had 15 different models of walk-behinds, and you had to stand there forever and talk about all the differences between them to the consumer, and it was a waste of time. They do the same thing with their chainsaws. You don't have to have that many chainsaws in the 40cc range. No point in it. But anyway, that's one of the things here with simplicity. It kind of makes it tough because you have that. Then you get into the collection systems. So it's bad enough that the decks haven't advanced the way the mower decks have from other manufacturers. John Deere, they're able to advance their mower decks. They're 7-iron decks. They've got the, their, gosh, how can I not remember this? They're convertible decks. They have them. Husqvarna, they've changed their decks through the years, to baffle them different and Of course, they have the hybrid fabricated stamp deck now. The one they use on their 200 series, 300 series tractors, and a lot of their zero turns. MTD, they've made some advancements on theirs, but simplicity. Let's just keep using this roller and this hitch setup. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it don't work, let's just keep calling it something else or whatever they do. But yeah, it hasn't advanced enough to keep up with everybody else. Oh, sorry about that. A lot of feedback here. Yeah, there we go again. All the other manufacturers, they've been advancing and trying to get better airflow out of their mower decks. They've been trying to get better performance out of them. Simplicity is just staying the course. Yeah, they have a couple fabricated decks and stuff, but there hasn't been any real big changes on them. And not only on the mower decks was there not big changes, but their collection systems have continued to stay very crude. And there's too many components to their collection systems. And because of the way their decks are designed, you have to spend a lot of money on a collection system for almost every product of theirs. It doesn't matter if it's a tractor, if it's a zero turn, whatever. It's going to be an expensive collection system. A lot of parts to it. They've been changing them slightly, but they're still not on par with like the ones from John Deere or Husqvarna. Bear with me here. I gotta adjust some stuff because I'm working while I'm doing this. But these other manufacturers, MTD, they're another one. They've made these things easier to attach to the tractor, remove from the tractor, and just less pieces involved. Simplicity, not so much. And they're expensive. Even on their like 42-inch fabricated tractor, 42-inch fabricated deck on their tractors and their zero turns, you're probably going to want to run one of their turbos on there to be able to get the stuff from the mower deck up to the hopper. Again, you don't have the blade speed, you don't have the belt tension to ensure that that's going to do that. Whereas on a 42-inch deck, Husqvarna, an MTD, a John Deere, you don't need anything like that. It's just going to shove that stuff right up in there to the hopper. We've got one of the Husqvarna, the cheap tractors that we use for collecting leaves around here. 48-inch deck, no turbo, power flow, blower, whatever you want to call it on there, and it works great. Year after year, it clogs up if we don't pay attention and don't empty the hopper before the bags get full. It could potentially clog up if we get into some big piles of wet leaves. But yeah, it's like a third of the cost, at least half the cost. So I don't know. With the John Deere setup, with the power flow, even that is a nice setup. You get good quality components. The blower, the hopper, the tubing, all that stuff, compared to the Simplicity stuff, which is still pretty crude looking compared to the stuff from John Deere. Let's see, what else do we got here? Okay, now we're gonna move into some more of the business end of it, the Briggs and Stratton family of things. Because this is the important part. All that stuff I said there, you can say, well, that's your opinion. Okay, got it. Yeah, duly noted. Yeah, it is my opinion. It is a lot of what we saw. Oh, one more thing I will add here. The tractors. They advertised to have a cast iron front axle, which sounds well and good. And you think, oh, well, that's a good feature, right? That's going to hold up for a good while. Not so much. We had several of these a year come in with that front axle just broken. Poor casting. If you're going to make a cast iron front axle, well, you want it to actually be a good casting and hold up. Speaking of front axles, Here's a story. I should have mentioned this back when I was talking about the legacy, because this is again how far the legacy has fallen and how much damage has been done to the legacy of the legacy since Briggs and Stratton took it over. At the dealership that I was at, we had one, and we we had that thing out there, and it was it was leaking gear oil out of the front rear, right there at the wheel. The axle seal was leaking. Hadn't even left the lot yet. You know, it was driven around there a good bit, but still a brand new tractor. Um, so it's leaking oil. We decide, okay, we gotta get this fixed because we want to try to sell this thing, obviously. Um, Go to look it up, no part number for this axle seal, and this is like 2 years ago. This is like 2019, 2020, somewhere right in there. No part number for the axle seal. So the mechanic calls up Simplicity and says, "We need an axle seal for the Simplicity Legacy. Here's the model. Here's the serial number." And they're like, "Well, just look it up and order it." "We can't. You have no part number." And they're like, "What? Why don't we have a part number?" "You tell us." So they did a little bit of research, and it turns out there was like 3 different manufacturers that could have made that front axle or that front rear for that legacy. They didn't know which one made it. They had no idea. They thought it was this one, whatever. And long story short, we ended up getting a seal, a front axle seal, but we couldn't get it from Briggs. We couldn't get it through Simplicity, which would be Briggs. We actually had to go to a Coyote dealer nearby and get it from them because it was the same company that was making the front axles in the Coyote tractors who made that one at that time. That is an important story because the joke there was, well, maybe they had to go through 3 different manufacturers because they didn't pay the bills to the first 2. And the reason why that was the joke is because, if you're not aware, right around that time, Briggs and Stratton was definitely struggling financially and then ended up filing for bankruptcy. It's not funny. We would joke about that because it was like so many people just refused to believe that was what was happening. And then it finally did happen. And the convenient part for them was that they did all this during 2020 when we had the shutdowns and all the COVID stuff and everything. But the writing had been on the wall for so long that, okay, it's hard to get parts. This stuff just isn't showing up. And there was just a lack of leadership, especially at the top. The quality of everything was just going downhill. Back to an example here of the quality that was going downhill. Back to the Regents, they switched them over to where they had an electric motor. They put an electric motor on the mower deck to raise and lower those rollers instead of the hand crank. So they put this electric motor on there, and it's this chintzy electric motor. The end of it, where the gear's at to move everything, it's all plastic, and there's like a cap on the end of it that's hot glued on there. We would get ones brand new out of the crate that as soon as you would go to hit that switch to move those rollers, it would just blow the end of that electric motor right out. Oh yeah. That's what I'm talking about, the quality control. So, most of us saw this coming for a little while with Briggs. They were struggling on the engine part. There's so many options out there for engines, and their replacement engines. Say what you want, but if an engine goes on something, how many people are going to Harbor Freight and buying one of those Predator engines? You can say, "I'm not buying that Chinese shit," all you want, but a lot of people out there buying it, and the reason why they're buying it is because when something goes wrong, they're replacing the parts with Honda parts, so eventually they have a nice, good Honda in there, or as close as they can get to a Honda without paying for a Honda. But there's been so many other options out there. Kohler's got some small engines now. I'm not saying they're better, but they've got them out there. MTD started making their own engines. for on their push mowers and some other stuff like their snow blowers, on their Troy-built rototillers. LCT, which bought out Tecumseh, they brought the quote unquote Tecumseh engine back for on the snow blowers. So Briggs was really losing a lot of ground in the engine market. And, then they're trying to build power equipment, and they're not a power equipment company. Even though they bought out those couple companies, Simplicity, Snapper, Ferris, and a handful of other ones that have just fallen by the wayside. So, yeah, it was only a matter of time before this just got to be out of hand, and it got to be too much for them. Now, again, they filed for bankruptcy. There's some outfit that handles this kind of stuff that took over operations and everything. And right away, you're hearing these stories of it's possible that if anybody wants to buy any of these brands, we're willing to talk. They're for sale, But again, this was all going on from 2020 on. So by that time, you think, okay, well, who would want to buy one of these brands? Who are the normal players when it came to buying another brand and or just buying another name to put on stuff? And you would have Husqvarna, but they had already canned a whole bunch of the product lines they already had. They had already gotten rid of Weed Eater. They shut down all their Poland stuff. That they hadn't shut down Johnson Red yet, but yeah, they were trimming way back. MTD would probably be the first one to jump out there and be like, yeah, we'll throw our name into the hat here to buy this, because MTD owns so many brands already, but they weren't buying either because they were in the process of getting bought out. Stanley Black & Decker was in the process of buying MTD, and really, what were they going to do? They had pretty much phased out their Columbia line because they needed all hands on deck to keep up with all the push mower sales that they had now, because Husqvarna stopped making walk-behinds and a couple other people stopped making walk-behinds, and everybody was turning to MTD saying, give us your Craftsman, give us your Troy-Builts, give us your Cub Cadets. So they're not going to buy any of this stuff. And you've had several other brands that have changed hands. Actually, I just mentioned MTD, but yeah, then MTD ended up in this deal with Hustler. If you haven't heard that one yet, no idea where that one's going, but, well, I shouldn't say MTD. Stanley Black & Decker, who bought MTD, bought Hustler. Toro's got Toro and Exmark. They're not going to want Simplicity. They're not going to want Snapper. They're not going to want Ferris. Why would they? They've already got their own big brand. And obviously John Deere, what do they need it for? So there's not a whole lot of options, especially with the way everything is right now, especially now when manufacturers are struggling just to make the parts for the brands and the models and the names they have under their belt. Now, why would they want to add another one, especially one that is, kind of got a stigma attached to it? So, yeah, we ride on with this, but we were at the plant where they build their zero turns in New York, Sherrill, New York, or however you pronounce it. We were there. We took a tour up. We got a video here on our channel somewhere where you can see they're building these mid-size zero turns. Simplicity, Ferris, and Snapper, all in the same building. One of the things you'll notice is there's a lot of red parts, and then there's these orange parts. The Ferris and Snapper zero turns, they're the same color red, So think about this. If you take over this dumpster fire that Briggs and Stratton had, you've got these three brands. You've got two brands where the parts are very similar. You got these red parts on your zero turns, these red zero turns. You could put a Ferris sticker on it, or you could put a Snapper sticker on it. Then you got this other one here where you got to change everything and paint it orange. Which one are you going to keep? Which one are you going to get rid of? From a business standpoint, think about that. You got these two brands here. You got red mower decks, and they mount the same and everything. But then you got this other one over here. It's orange, and you got to put all this extra crap on here, rollers and everything else. Going to cost you extra money. Which one are you going to keep? Which one are you going to get rid of? Yeah. Then you look at the fact that, Ferris is their thoroughbred. That's going to be their top attraction. If they're looking to sell anything, Ferris is their commercial brand. Commercial guys, there's still a lot of them out there that are after the Ferris stuff. They like that suspension on them. They just like those machines. They also have a big line of commercial stuff from Ferris. They've got the spraying equipment. They've got the stand-on leaf blowers. They've got the big front mounts. They've got the big zero turns. Ferris is a very solid name, and there's a lot of product there that makes them a lot of money. So if you're going to keep a brand, that's definitely a brand to keep. Then, as I said, you look at their other red brand, Snapper. You say, well, there you go. We can get rid of them. That's just cheap shit. Well, pump the brakes on that one. Here's what you've got from Snapper. In Snapper, you have a line of tractors, residential zero turns. They also have the higher end zero turns, stand-on mowers in their Snapper Pro line. I think they cut it out this year just because of supply chain issues, but up until I think a year ago, they were still making the old classic rear engine rider Snapper. People were still wanting that thing, There were still people coming in asking for them. So you've also got the battery-powered stuff under the Snapper name, which is your handheld equipment. You got chainsaw, string trimmer, leaf blower, hedge trimmer, and you've also got walk-behinds under the Snapper name. So you keep that Snapper name, and now you've got a wide line of products there that you could put in a dealer, and a dealer would be able to fit up a customer with almost everything they needed to do their lawn work around the home, right? You got the handheld stuff. It might be battery powered, but at least it's still the handheld equipment. Tractor, zero turn, all that stuff. You go to Simplicity, what do you got? Zero turns, tractors, and snow blowers. Well, you can get snow blowers from Snapper. You can get snow blowers under the Briggs name too, if you really wanted to. But yeah, you don't have near as much in that Simplicity line anymore under that Simplicity name. Do you think there's a reason for that? Seriously, I mean, think about this from a business standpoint. And this is the main reason. Like I said, all the other stuff I said at the beginning, you can say, well, that's opinion. That is opinion. Now we get into the meat and potatoes of it, and you look at this from a business standpoint. Which one is all of a sudden the one that looks like the problem child? Which one is the one that just sticks out like a sore thumb? Yeah, that orange one. Because everything else is red. Everything else has big lines of equipment that can be used to make money. That's what they're in business for. Where are you going to go with Simplicity now? In that Simplicity line, they were the only ones that you had a tractor where you could put these attachments on, like a loader and all that stuff, and you just did away with it. So now what? Yeah, this is why I would be leery of that brand right now, because I think there's just too many things that are still a hot mess there with the former Briggs and Stratton family of products and equipment. And until that gets straightened out and there's a clear path to, rebuilding the name and the quality, I would just be leery that at any time that could just be shut down. That could be gone. You might say, well, there's no way. They've got this long history of... Remember when Toro bought Wheel Horse? How long did that take? How long did that take for Wheel Horse to be gone? Done. Think about that, and then think about how long has Briggs and Stratton owned Simplicity. They have owned Simplicity longer than Toro owned Wheel Horse. And so it could definitely be done. You know, especially in these times. Like I keep saying, it's there's different people running it now, and they are trying to turn a profit. They wouldn't have invested in all this if they weren't looking to just do something here to unload this stuff, make a profit on it, and go reinvest somewhere else. It wasn't another power equipment manufacturer that bought all this stuff or took all this over. It wasn't another engine company. It wasn't any of that. This was a company that deals in bankruptcies. So how committed do you think they are to, building these product lines back up? They're looking at bottom lines. You can argue that. I mean, again, this is basically opinion from me, but you have to look at it from a business standpoint. And when you're in business, you're there to make money. You're there to, you're not there to lose money. You're not there to watch everything go down the drain. You're going to make the moves that need to be made to increase your profits, to bring you more money. And if that means, hey, we shut this down because we're having a hard time finding help in our factories, we're having a hard time getting materials to build stuff, we're having a hard time getting the components that we need from these other vendors. If we shut this down, we can take those people, move them over to our Snapper brand, our Ferris brand. If we shut this down, we don't have to buy orange paint anymore. If we shut this down, we don't need all those rollers. We don't need the extra stuff that is specific only to this brand. We can focus on these two brands right here, which have a lot more in their lines, and we can get them into the different places, and we can sell more of these. We can produce more of these. We can raise our profits on these, and off we go to the races again. Yeah, you can say I'm just hating on simplicity. You can claim it would be whatever you want. But again, look at it from a business standpoint. If that was you, what would you do? If you're just die hard for simplicity, I guess the other option would be, hey, put out a press release. We're changing up the Snappers and Ferris mowers, and they're all going to be orange now. That'll go real well. What else are you going to do? Think about it. If you were running that company, if you were running that operation, you could say, well, I wouldn't let it get that way, and I would do that. Yeah, it's a tough one. And again, I would hate to see that happen. I don't, it's not like I'm wishing and hoping for that. I'm just telling you what I've been seeing, as somebody working at a dealer and who was around all this stuff for the past couple of years, and the way things have developed so rapidly. There's also this thing where people think there's this glimmer of hope because they saw a picture, or maybe they were lucky enough to see it in person, of Simplicity Regent battery powered at a show last year. And okay, you could say, well, look at this. Talk about the Snapper battery powered stuff. They got Simplicity battery powered Regent coming out. We'll see it when it happens. Because 2 years ago, just a little over 2 years ago, it was the end of 2019. We were at the big Briggs Stratton annual dealers event where they had all their stuff on display. You go out in the field and there's all the Ferris products, all the Snapper products, all the Simplicity products, all the Vanguard products over here. It was crazy. Just they had everything and anything that they had been working on or had in production or were already making, whatever. It was out there and you could try it out. You could see it up close and personal. You could run it around, all that stuff. They actually had a Simplicity Currier out there. It was battery powered. Had 2 big lead acid batteries in it. They took the Currier and they just took the spindles out, put electric motors in there, and put the big batteries in there where the engine went and everything. I don't even remember back then what they told us the price was possibly going to be, because it wouldn't even do it justice now with the inflation and everything. I'm sure it'd be way more than what they actually even said, but it was high back then. And yeah, this was just a prototype. It wasn't anything that was in production. Had a really long charge time compared to Well, that was a 48-inch cut, and compared to say the Ego 52-inch zero turn, it had a ridiculous charge time. This Simplicity Currier compared to that Ego zero turn. They also had the same thing, of course, in the Snapper version, battery powered. So okay, yeah, they're working on it, but again, Cub Cadet, Ego, Greenworks, all these companies already have stuff out there, and they're already established in the battery product game. So you could say, well, Snapper has their battery powered stuff, so why can't they do the same thing with the Simplicity and blah 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 blah. Again, you've got a brand in your family that's completely different than the other ones. So even if you are going to start with this battery powered ride on stuff, are you just going to throw the battery powered equipment out there in a brand where you have nothing else battery powered? Or are you going to throw it out there under the brand of the company or the name that you already have battery powered products for? Obviously, from a business standpoint, you would add the battery powered ride on products to the brand where you already have the battery powered handheld stuff, right? Just makes sense. Because now you've just attracted a whole new customer base that Ego had, that Greenworks had. Because if somebody wants all battery powered stuff, you can do that. Again, you got to think of this from a business standpoint. So, getting back to this battery powered Regent, here's the thing with that. Like I said, yeah, they could have that there and they could be showing it. The story I got on that was they actually, when I say they, the Briggs company, whoever's running Briggs now, actually bought out two other companies. I believe it was a company in California and a company in Canada. From what I remember, one was definitely Canada. One specializes, I believe, was in batteries, and the other one, their big thing is everything else to do with batteries. All the other stuff. So they basically what they did was they bought out these two companies to be able to speed up the process with their battery powered stuff. So they bought out this company that's doing all this stuff with batteries, and then they bought up this other company whose big thing was the battery management systems and all the electronic stuff. But you're putting this on a Simplicity Regent, and you say, well, there you go. They're already ahead because now they got this company and there's batteries. They got this company and there's the other stuff, and they've already got the tractors, so they just need to implement this right on the tractors, just like Cub Cadet did, right? Not that simple. And why it's not that simple is because for so long now, I remember brand new Simplicity Regents coming in, unloaded off the truck. You open up the crate, which is in perfect condition. The crate is just nothing wrong with the crate. You open up the crate, and there's the mower inside, hood smashed, side panel smashed. And you call up Simplicity and say, just uncredited this mower here that was delivered. It's all smashed up. We need to claim this damage, and we need new parts. Oh, yeah, we don't have those parts. You can place an order for them, but they're on back order. What are we supposed to do? Well, we can take it back. We can send a call tag, and we'll come out and pick that tractor up and take it back. Yeah, we'll take it back because we don't want a machine here that's all smashed up and we can't sell if you don't have parts for it. So the point of that is, if they're using a tractor that already exists, great, that would speed things up. But when you don't have the parts to build those tractors with the gas engines, and you're already a year behind in production on getting these machines out there to your dealers because you're just now shipping out stuff that was supposed to be shipped out for the spring of 2021, and we're in the spring of 2022, how quick are you going to have those components to be able to put on this battery-powered tractor? You've already got all these parts committed to these machines that dealers already agreed to purchase from you a year ago, and you can't get that done. How quick do you think you're going to be able to get that battery-powered version of that tractor out there? It just doesn't seem realistic. And again, you know, uh, you throw that into a snapper, it's gonna be less money. Well, how can you say that? You might say, but you don't have all that extra stuff on the mower deck. Like I keep pointing out, these are all important things when you look at it from a business aspect. If you can take all that battery technology and you can put that on a Snapper SPX, you're not going to have the rollers, the extra linkages, all that stuff on that mower deck. Right there, you cut out a lot of cost on that machine. So by doing that, it's going to help you get a lot more competitive with these other brands, right? Because that's what you got to do. You have to be competitive with Cub Cadet now, because Cub Cadet has that Cub Cadet tractor, which was their 42-inch tractor, and they just slapped some big lithium-ion batteries of their own under the hood. And you can take that tractor out there. You can put the collection system off of the gas-powered tractor right on that. You can put a snowplow in the front of it too, because it's the same frame. You can do all that stuff. That's what got them ahead in the game. And well, I shouldn't say ahead, but it got them caught up to where everybody else was at. So from a business standpoint, if you're the people running the show here now of the Briggs and Stratton family of products, that seems like the better way to go. Yeah, like again, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I don't want to, I I'm not saying this is the way it has to be or the way it's definitely going to be, but when you look at the writing on the wall, it definitely points that way. And again, if you put yourself into that position there, you start looking at this from a business standpoint, good chance you're going to be agreeing with the stuff I'm saying, that you're going to be understanding that, like, well, hey, if I had to do this to make, if I had to do something to turn this around, or if there was something that had to be done to get the profits up, it makes sense, right? I mean, you could kind of suspend operations on that, stop productivity on this stuff for like a year or so. Yeah, kind of like back during like World War I and World War II, when the auto manufacturers stopped making cars. Yeah, it was for a whole different reason. But if you've got all these shortages of stuff, put a hold on that simplicity stuff. It's going to affect the dealers, I know. But if you prepare for this and you do it right, you could potentially do that. Give them something else to sell, or make a quick run at a lot of stuff, and just tell them, hey, this is what we're going to have for the year, and that's it. And then put all your efforts into your red brands and build that up and get your revenue back up, get your cash flow coming back in, and then go back to the Simplicity brand and try to better it, and make it more appealing and more profitable. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know where this one's going to go, and I'm not very optimistic about it just because of the damage that's been done by the people that were running everything there at Briggs and Stratton. This is a big hole to climb out of, and it's a serious one. Anytime bankruptcy's involved, obviously it's a serious one. You can't make that up. That's not opinion. That's fact. That happened. You can go on Google and you can look that up. They filed for bankruptcy. That's not good. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about that. I would love to hear what you guys think about this. What you guys are hearing out there, what you're seeing. Any kind of feedback on this would be great. This is a good thing to have a discussion about here, as to what we all see going on, and where we think this is going to go, and what the options might be. Maybe there's some stuff we could suggest and they might actually listen. I kind of doubt it, but yeah, at any rate, the way to do it. Comment here on this video. Send us an email, ashelmaniatv@gmail.com. Again, would love to hear some feedback on this, and what you guys think. If you're in the position where you would be running this operation, where you would be the head guy there at the offices at what used to be the Briggs and Stratton, whatever. and you've got to make the decisions on how to bring all this back, how to climb out of this hole that the former management higher ups left. What would you do? How would you go about it? Realistically, how would you handle this? Do you think what I'm saying seems like a legitimate possibility, or do you think that there's another way that I'm just completely overlooking here? Again, I know Simplicity has a great history. You still see a lot of those old tractors, out there at the tractor shows and stuff. Uh, the old landlords, and then you got the old Alice Chalmers B10s and B12s, which were just basically yellow versions of the Simplicities. There's a lot of history there. Simpletractors.com. If you go into that website, tons of great old Simplicity tractors and other equipment, and it's just very cool stuff. It's a shame that this is where it got to. And again, I mentioned Toro buying Wheel Horse. A lot of this right here is what we saw with that, right? Next thing we knew, it was just gone. And you say, well, how could they take such a big popular brand that's still is hugely popular with the collectors and everything and just squash it and kill it? They did it. We saw it happen. So, given what's going on in the world right now and all the issues that we have with everything these days, this is definitely not out of the realm of possibility. And it's something that we really have to brace for. Now there's always the potential that it could be a deal like Cub Cadet. When MTD bought Cub Cadet from International Harvester, first couple years weren't bad. The Cyclops tractors, good strong tractors. That's actually what my Super Cubs. Oh no, I'm sorry. No, my thinking there, because I have a couple different Cub Cadets. My Super Cubs, they are the Cyclops style. I also have the old the 1050, which was one that I'm getting completely off track here, but I've got the Cub Cadet 1050, which was a gear drive. It was one that was made by MTD, but had that one had the cast aluminum gear drive transmission in it, which I ended up swapping over to the old International Harvester style cast iron one because I was pulling with it, but different story for a different day. Anyway, when MTD bought Cub Cadet, at first they kept things the same, and then eventually cheapened it up, changed it, and they went downhill. They went way downhill. But they've come back as a brand. They've come back as a popular brand now. And yeah, you might be able to say, well, that's because everything else kind of went downhill too. But they're still relevant. They're still selling a lot of units. You see them at Tractor Supply. Again, when everybody lost their walk behinds because Husqvarna stopped making walk behinds. So the Husqvarna dealers lost them. A couple other brands that Husqvarna was making for, they lost them. People were flocking to MTD, and the main brand that they wanted was Cub Cadet because Cub Cadet has a very big lineup of equipment. So if you become a Cub Cadet dealer, you've got a little bit of everything. And speaking of that, I actually know, not too far from me, a guy who was a Simplicity dealer. And when the Cub Cadet dealer up the road from him decided they were done, they were going to close up their shop, he jumped on that as quick as he could because he wanted to just get rid of Simplicity because it was basically a dead horse for him. Couldn't sell anything, couldn't move anything, couldn't get any support. He took in Cub Cadet and has never been happier. He's definitely not looking back. But yeah, that's where we're at, So yeah, I'm rambling on here about this and keep bringing up more and more stuff. But let us know what you think. Give us your feedback on this. Again, eshelmaniatv@gmail.com. Comment on the video link here. Let us know what you're thinking, what your thoughts are, what the best way might be to handle this. Hope for the best, but brace yourself for the worst. That's going to do it for this episode here. Thanks for listening to me ramble on about this. But yeah, that's what I'm seeing with Simplicity, and that's why I make these comments now and then about why I don't think it's really a good investment. If you've got other options out there, you might want to look into them instead. Hey, this is just like anything else. it could be a good product for you as long as you can get the support for it when you need the support, as long as you can get the parts for it when you need the parts. So we'll see. We'll see what happens from there. All right. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to this channel, and thanks for watching.